Good afternoon and welcome to Bariatric Friday. My name is Kemal. Erkan. I'm the chairman of American Surgery Center and United Medical ACO. Today we are going to make a little bit change on what we normally do. Dr. Erkan is going to be back next week, but while he's away, last week we have our support group with Dr. Gail Wynn, and today our nutritionist, one of our nutritionists, Wright, is joining me. Beth, how are you doing?
I'm good. I've had a full day of patients, so I'm primed and ready to go.
All right, great. So we are going to do something different today. We haven't done this before. Nutrition, from the nutritionist point, we didn't actually, we do cover of course, the nutrition part of it from the surgeon standpoint, but all of our patients who are going through bariatric surgery, we ask them to have complete 3 nutrition classes minimum, and that is usually happening in the 2-month, 3-month period. And sometimes our nutritionists, they ask, okay, well, we may need to have 1 more session or 2 more sessions based on what patient may need to prepare them for the best outcome. And so I will we'll do a little role playing. So I will be the patient with BMI 50. Okay. And it's going to be our first nutrition session, and Beth is going to tell me how to guide me through and then how to go through the process. All right, so our first session.
Yes, all right, so let me just tell you, you have logged on via some sort of portal, either the Doxy portal or a Zoom link or something like that. So I'm going to see you pop up on my screen. You'll have been told you're meeting with Beth Wright, registered dietitian. All right. So, all right. Hey, Kemal. Welcome at least virtually to my office. My name is Beth Wright. Do you like to be called Kemal, or do you have another version of your name? Kemal. Okay, good. Well, have you ever spent time talking with a registered dietitian before?
So again, just a reminder, so this is a mock session. So
you're gonna role play. You're not.
Yeah, my answers are gonna be kind of like what's expected.
Yes.
Yes, I have talked to a nutritionist in the past. I tried different sources to better understand, but just didn't happen. And I ended up being here and I decided on the surgery. But I don't know actually why I'm having this nutrition session and how this is going to help my process.
All right. So good I always like to kind of find out where a patient's coming from, because people come to me with various levels of knowledge about nutrition. Some people have spent a lot of time with dietitians before and really kind of know what we talk about, but other people don't know a lot of about nutrition. So I'm here to kind of meet you where you are with that. So yes, you meet with quite a few healthcare people while you're preparing for bariatric surgery. The sessions with the registered dietitian, we focus in on trying to set you up with the basic kind of health habits that are going to help you take weight off in a healthy way after surgery, and then also work with you on habits that are going to help you keep your weight off for long periods of time after you have your surgery. So a registered dietitian is a person that we just loved to study and understand what foods do in our body. How does it promote health, or how does it take away from health? So you come to us as evidence-based nutrition experts, and we then work with you to, as they say, try to set you up for success. So one of the things that I definitely like to make clear is I'm not here to be a food nanny. All right. I'm not going to sit here and slap you on the wrist for anything, because nobody is perfect with this. It's all about just putting together step by step the practice. And it's that old adage, practice makes perfect. Okay. So you and I, according to your insurance, it looks like we have 3 sessions together. And so today's session is our longest session, where we're going to go into a little bit more into depth of things. And then towards the end of our session today, I'll kind of tell you what to expect just a little bit, I'll give you a preview of what your second and your third session with me are going to look like. Okay.
Sure. And just so that I'm sure you have this information already in the chart. So from the BMI 50 standpoint, my height is 6'1", so I need to be around like 380 pounds. So the patient that I'm marking is 380. So just so that put it in perspective, I'm about right now 220 pounds and still trying to lose weight. But now I'm actually putting myself in a patient with the same height who is about 150 pounds heavier than I am. And therefore, even without the level, we already struggled with the maintaining it, but from going back to the patient. So I try everything and it's not working. So then all I think about is food. I eat sometime at like nighttime.
Like after dinner or in the middle of the night?
After dinner.
Okay.
After 10, after 10:30. Sometimes I get up around like 2:30 in the morning and want to eat stuff. And because of the weight, my mobility is a little bit limited, so I'm not able to exercise. So I want to go to the gym.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about that. So because I always like to check in with where people are with their intentional exercise. And so would you characterize that you do some sort of intentional exercise every week, or do you sometimes do exercise, or
I feel
whatsoever?
I feel tired most of the time because I may have sleep apnea. Right now, one of the orders that I have to complete is the sleep apnea for the home sleep study.
Okay.
When I get up, I'm not rested, so I feel like tired all the time. So I just don't want to do
Makes
much.
it hard.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the most exercise I would do is maybe like 15-20 minute walk.
A 15 or 20-minute walk? Okay. How many times a week would you say you do something like that?
Maybe once or twice.
Okay. All right. So if you can think back to a time in the past where you did have a little bit more energy on a day-to-day basis, was there any kind of exercise that you really kind of enjoyed doing, or at least didn't hate doing?
So I think walking is fine, but I just get tired very quickly. So I wish that I could walk more, longer, and maybe a little bit with a higher intensity. But it's after 15 minutes, I get really tired.
Years ago, was there any kind of activity that you really liked doing besides walking?
I used to go to the gym.
Okay.
That's been last time I tried it was maybe 6-7 years ago.
And did you enjoy going to the gym, or was it something you just did because you thought you had to be healthy?
Well, it was just more like trying to maintain and not to gain weight. But I think in time it was just happening in a way that like things slowed down, and like once I wasn't seeing the results, so then I probably started eating more.
Got discouraged. Yeah. Okay.
How am I doing so far? Are you hearing this all the time, or I didn't study this with anyone, so
yeah. So far, so good. I think I'm getting the information that I need. So let me find out a little bit more about how your day flows, because everybody's an individual here, and I don't just give you the same advice for every single person. I want to know a little bit more about how your day goes, because I'm going to customize my advice more to you. So what does work for you? What do you do for a profession?
I'm in an office type of a job, like I'm in healthcare.
Got it. Okay. So
but it's like most of the day I'm sitting.
I was going to ask. Yes, that's exactly why I tend to check, because some people have jobs where they're moving around and they naturally get a lot of steps. And there's others of us like me that have more of a job where I'm sitting more of the time. So definitely I have to pay attention to being purposefully active during the day as well. So that's exactly why I ask. And do you tend to work, daytime hours mostly?
Yes, mostly daytime hours. So 8 to 6, 8 to 5, 8 to 7.
Okay, all righty. Again, so I've got an idea of how you're spending 8, 9 hours a day, but tell me about when you're going home, what's the living situation like? Are you living alone? Are you living with a family around you? Who's the main cook?
Usually, the first thing that I think about is having a dinner. So after dinner, I get tired. If the weather is nice, I will try to walk. But if it's a little bit like rain, would just convince me to not to. So would find excuses not to go out. So
yeah.
Well, part of it is, I guess, because like if I know that I can lose, let's say, 75 pounds or so, I see if I see the light at the end of the tunnel, it would kind of motivate me. But and I'm just not able to get to that level. It's just, you don't feel like you want to do that. Just focusing on food and, what else can I have? Can I eat? And when you start thinking about it too much, then you want to eat a little bit more.
Right. And you kind of get tunnel vision for where your thoughts are going. Yeah. So when you go home, are there other people that you live with, or do you live alone?
There are a couple of people in the house that I live with.
And are you the main cook, or is somebody else the main cook?
Someone else cooks.
Okay, great. All right. So, and same thing with kind of shopping. Who's the main shopper in the house?
The person who does the cooking is the one who's
okay. Shop. Got it. Okay. All right. One other kind of just general question about your day. How's your sleep? How many hours do you tend to get a night? Now, I know you said you've been tested for sleep apnea. So
it depends on the day, but I think I get maybe 6-7 hours every day.
Okay.
All right. Maybe a little bit more.
Okay. So yeah, I'm the dietitian, I'm the food gal, but the reason I'm asking about sleep is we know from a lot of research in sleep that getting enough sleep affects our hormonal balance, and that hormonal balance then affects our weight. So one of the kind of weight management things is to pay attention to getting enough sleep. So now the question might be, what's enough sleep? Well, typically it's that 7 to 8 hours. So I always tell my patients to get about 6 to 7. You're doing pretty well there, but just pay attention. Like if you find yourself getting more on that 6-hour side, maybe work on trying to push it more towards that 7, because we want you to be, not getting things, having sleep interfere with all of the hard work you're doing as well. Okay. All right. So I'm going to kind of segue a little bit away from peppering you with questions about, your day to day. And we're going to, I'm going to take you through kind of a typical day with eating and drinking. Okay. I'm going to pause here. I want to tell you why I did all that stuff. Okay. So one of the really neat things about meeting with a dietitian is we work with where you are as a person. So I don't expect every single one of my patients to be able to do the exact same thing on the same time frame. We're going to cater and work with you for what things are difficult for you and what things come easier for you. So for example, you were saying to me how tired you are with exercise and things like that. Well, of course, because you're carrying a lot of weight, that makes things hard. Plus you have the apnea, etc. So I need to know all of these things so that at the end of the session, when we start setting goals, I know how to set goals for you based on what you've told me. Like the reason I asked you, who cooks in the house? Well, you're not the main cook. You're not the main shopper. So I know I need to counsel you a bit about how do you broach that subject? Because even if you're making nutritious changes after surgery, if the cook doesn't get the kinds of food and prepare the kinds of foods that are going to help make you successful, that's a roadblock. And it can get complex because I need to know about some of the family dynamics. Do you have a lot of support for this change? Or are there people in the household that are saying, hey, Kemal, you can do what you want, but don't make it affect me. And dietitians, we get into that because we want to set you up for success. So I might have to counsel you on how can you go past those kinds of roadblocks. Okay, so I just want to let you know why I talked about those things.
Absolutely, and I think I see what the point here is that in some cases, when I want to be on a certain diet, then it's not supported. So that if they are not doing it, if they eat, then you feel like you are left out, and you're already struggling and hungry, and I don't think there's enough support or maybe enough understanding of why I decided on the bariatric surgery kind of.
Right.
Because they should maybe have the same process, but they don't want to do it.
Right.
They
Exactly.
think that I'm picking the easier way to, figure out the solution for the problem. But I say, well, this is the most effective way. Then why would I not take advantage of this? Because I tried all the diets and everything, but then they don't agree. The family does not agree with the surgery.
So as a dietitian, I'm going to kind of work with you based on what your family situation is. And I'm going to tailor and tailor my feedback, tailor my recommendations based on that situation. All right. Now we're going back to our role play. Okay. So get ready again. All right. So
we were all role playing. Everything that I told you was about role playing. Right? So.
Well, it kind of was, but we were also explaining. All right. So one of the things that's important for this session is I need to get an idea of how your day flows with food, because how our day flows with food tends to affect our health outcomes. So again, remember I told you I'm not here to be the food nanny. So I want to hear everything. I want to hear about the healthy stuff, the unhealthy stuff, so that I get a good picture of things. And keep in mind, dietitians, we love details. So instead of telling me for breakfast you have eggs and toast, tell me please, I have 2 slices of white bread and I have usually 1 or 2 scrambled eggs and 2 slices of turkey bacon. Go into a little of the detail for me.
Mm-hmm. So I would say that, on a weekday, I think bread is part of the issue, I would say. And sometimes I don't know when to stop. Like, I don't feel like I'm full. So then, then I realize later on that I'm I ate too much, and that already sets off the day in the wrong way. And then usually it's eggs and maybe cheese and some sweet stuff like the cereal. Again, the portion is the problem. And you want to, it says there, so serving is 1 cup or whatever. So then I may end up having 3-4 cups. So, and I don't realize sometimes I do that. And that's usually how the breakfast goes.
Okay. So typically you're choosing between maybe 2 kinds of typical breakfasts, a lot of cereal or maybe like eggs and cheese. Would you have anything else with the eggs and cheese, or usually that's just it? Would you have toast or bagel?
I would have a couple slices of bread. I say a couple, maybe more than a couple.
Okay. And typically is it usually white bread, wheat bread?
Regular white bread.
Okay. What do you like to put on it?
Butter.
Okay. All right.
Butter with salt. Black pepper.
Cereals. What kinds of cereals do you often have?
Well, I like the ones kind of like the chocolate flavor ones, they're kind of little.
Like Cocoa Puffs or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I actually really don't know what's out there.
What kind of milk do you tend to use?
Regular.
Like a whole milk?
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right. Thanks. What about anything to drink in the morning?
I would probably have some coffee or some days maybe tea, but mostly coffee.
What do you put in your coffee?
Creamer and a lot of sugar.
Okay. All right. So do you use the packets or like a spoon? for the sugar?
Um, I use a spoon.
Okay. How many do you tend to put in?
Like maybe 2.
Okay. All right. The creamer, is it the regular creamer or sugar-free creamer?
You want to see what this is?
Yeah, if you have it, that's great. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it looks like an International Delight maybe or something like that.
You see it?
Kind of. It's a little fuzzy, but I can get a general idea. Okay.
It's Coffee Mate.
Coffee mate. Got it. Okay. All right. All right. All right. So kind of got breakfast. Do you tend to have anything you like to snack on between breakfast and lunch, or do you tend to eat a bigger breakfast and wait
Not
till
between
lunch?
breakfast and lunch. No, but usually I have snacks in the afternoon. Like I get a little bit like more tired, and then I would probably like want to have some ice cream or some chocolate bar or something.
So you might have that mid morning, or is that what you
But
said?
this is more in the afternoon, like after lunch.
Afternoon. Okay. Got it. Okay. All right. So what kinds of things? So you said after lunch. So what kinds of things do you like to have for lunch?
Usually, like the fast food,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Burger King.
Okay. On a
I don't pack lunch, so then we end up buying usually.
Okay. All right. So we did talk about kind of typical snacks that you might have sometime after lunch. Dinners. Do you tend to eat mostly dinners from home, or do you tend to go get takeout? I want to know kind of the ratio of like.
They mostly home cook. Like a lot of probably steak, chicken with rice, regular rice.
Mhm.
Sometimes pasta with it. So
Okay.
not a lot of salad. And usually I want to have usually like some dessert after dinner.
Okay. All right.
So far.
So let me see if I've got this. So typically when you're eating the dinner that somebody else has prepared, because you told me somebody else is usually cooking,
Mhm.
there's always usually some sort of protein on your plate. So it's some sort of meat usually. Would you say, how do they tend to, you prepare it usually? Do they bake it, fry it, barbecue?
The summertime is less fried stuff. Like there's some like maybe barbecue type, but outside of summer usually fried.
Okay, all right. So, and then you also said you had some sort of carbohydrate like rice or pasta. Do you ever have potatoes or anything like that?
Yeah. Some days with and also like some other vegetables like eggplant and zucchini.
Okay. So that was one of my questions. Is there usually some sort of vegetable with those things, or sometimes yes, sometimes no?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Okay. All right. Got it. All right. Thank you. Because all of that is really helpful information for me as a dietitian, because we're going to be kind of talking about what things you're doing well already that are going to help you after surgery, and you can keep doing them. But we're also going to look at some of the things that you might need to work on changing a little bit or a lot to help with your health goals after surgery. But again, I'll go into that mostly in our second session a little bit. We might touch on a little of that at the end of today's session. Okay. All right. I do want to find out what you drink besides that coffee that you mentioned. What do you drink throughout the day?
Rest of the day, I would probably like between coffee and sometimes I get Starbucks, like the latte. If I do Starbucks, I would get some sweet snack with it. In some days, maybe just tea. But between the coffee and tea, alternate.
It's all right. You said besides the coffee and the tea, what did you say?
Coffee and tea,
Okay.
just the regular tea.
Okay.
Some days maybe like a Diet Coke I would have. So
Okay.
that's the other thing.
All right. I'm gonna just kind of brainstorm some other common drinks, and you can tell me, oh yeah, I also have that, or no, I don't. So any water?
So because I started, since I started, going through the first consult, my surgeon told me to pay attention to the water
Okay.
consumption. So I try to increase it. So I usually finish like 2 of these.
Okay, that looks like about 24 ounce maybe, or okay, maybe, all right?
More than 20.
Is it
Let's go with 24.
24,
And
32?
to make it a little bit more enjoyable, I put in the middle of it. I don't know if other patients would like to do this.
Lemon.
I have lemon, cucumber, ginger, and mint.
And I'm glad you already know about that. Good, because I often have to tell or explain that that's an option. We call that infusing our drink. And it's a way to get lots and lots of healthy water, which is absolutely kind of one of the cornerstones of being healthy. But you don't have to always drink just completely plain. So you're right, doing something like that is a great idea. And you can even do something like that after surgery too. So any like lemonades, punches, anything like that on a regular basis, or not really?
No, like if in the evenings, I would probably have a couple glass of wine.
Okay. Okay, good. Yeah, and that was going to be my next question, is any alcoholic beverages. So wine, a couple glasses, would that be most days of the week, or would that be maybe 1 or 2 days a week?
Like every other day-ish. Not every day, but maybe like 3-4 times a week. Okay,
great. All right, I'm pausing here again. I'm going to make a comment now. All right, so I'm on the other side here. All right, so the reason we went through all of that is at the end of my session today, if I have time left, I am going to start to have them kind of work on some of the things that patients are doing that will need to change in order for them to be really healthy after surgery. And we won't try to tackle everything at once. But for example, one of the things we might look at is, are they getting any sugar in their beverages? We might start to work on the sugar in the coffee. We would also work on, I would talk with them about caffeine consumption, how you need to start to wean before surgery from that. We would talk about ways to get their water intake up. And then I would be talking about alcohol, how to kind of pull back on that. And then I'd talk about kind of the guidelines around alcohol and bariatric surgery, because if people do like alcohol, they usually want to know, can I ever have that again in my life? So we do touch on that. Anyway, so all of those details are going to help me to tell them what they're doing really well and work with what is not going to help with their healthy weight loss after surgery. Okay. So I'm going to jump to the next thing that I usually do in an initial session. But before I do that, do you have anything you want to interject outside of your role play?
I guess trying to kind of put myself in the patient's position in the first visit, just so that I can, like, in my answers, maybe some of whom, like, I kind of like mix what I would normally do, and just so that, and I know you are not a big fan of an intermittent diet, so in my real life right now, when I'm not the monk patient, I'm almost end of my 18-hour no food right now. So trying not to think about food is difficult right now. So after 18 hours.
Oh, yeah, I have a hard time with that.
Right? So, and then just kind of understand, like, am I expecting, like the weight loss from this nutrition session, or am I being guided for the successful surgery? It's kind of like, the mixed feeling that patients sometimes they tell us, oh, I started with the nutrition, so am I going to lose weight? Or I started this medication, am I going to lose weight? And the patient that we are actually portraying here is a BMI 50. It's about 150 pounds more than where I am today. So the expectation, and just being in some cases desperate, is what we hear from the patients in our case conferences, because like every day we meet with our nurses and we reach out to the patients, and that's kind of like I wonder what else they would be asking and what information, would I hide any information from the nutritionist?
Mhm.
Like, would I be like fully honest with everything that I'm doing or not? So those are all kind of like questions are going through my head as I'm trying to
Sure.
just.
And one of the ways that I approach the topic of weight loss during this preparation process is I try to give them a perspective. And really, because I really emphasize with them that the main important part of this lead up to surgery is starting in or continuing the healthy habits that are going to help set you up for success after surgery. The act of just starting to do these things makes it less overwhelming after you have surgery to do all of these healthy changes. So I don't tend to put a huge amount of pressure on you have to lose exactly 12 pounds. We talk more about let's work on being healthy. Let's work on a positive relationship with food. Let's work on the things that might get in the way of you doing these things. And hopefully we are going to see weight loss during this process. And then I'm usually clear that we'd like not to see gain during this process. But if they are really doing, like they've changed their habits completely, where they never even got off the couch before, but now they're walking 3 days a week, I'm going to say, even if they don't lose a pound from that, I'm going to say, you win there. You did great. And we're just going to kind of go with, we're going to lead with healthy habits, and hopefully from healthy habits, we'll see weight loss. Does that kind of help kind of address a little bit what you were talking about?
Yes, it does. Definitely.
Okay. I did want to just jump to a few other things that I covered during the initial session. All dietitians work a little bit differently, but we all kind of cover the same basic information within our 3 sessions. So for me personally, I tend to talk with my patients about a few things that eventually they're going to need to purchase to have on hand right after surgery, because I like to give them a little time to start to try things and do some internet research and things like that. So I explain, do you want me to role play with this, or would you like me to just tell you about it?
So, well, let's go with the role play. So,
okay, good. Let's do that. Okay.
Like for those who are watching, so you and I, we actually didn't even talk other than just, agreeing on what we are going to do.
Right.
So,
yeah, no, we didn't rehearse any of this at all. So if it's a little choppy, that's why. Okay, so now we're back to role play. All right, Kemal. So when we were talking earlier, you don't know a lot of people that have gotten bariatric surgery. So there might be a couple things that you're not aware of that I want to make sure and touch on today. So one of the things that we ask all people that have bariatric surgery to do is to commit to taking vitamins and minerals on a daily basis. And that's something we want you to do the rest of your life. It's not just for a couple months, it's forever and ever. Reason being, yes, we hope that you're going to be eating pretty darn healthily after surgery, but again, your stomach is a lot smaller. So even if you're eating really healthily, we want to have you taking some vitamins and minerals just to kind of be a buffer if you're not getting quite enough of some of the vitamins and minerals you need. So I am going to send to you through the IQ Health portal. We'll send you a link and you're going to sign up for that. I'm going to send you 2 handouts that tell you kind of what you're going to be taking after surgery and how much. Then I'm going to give you some brand recommendations, because for at least 6 months after your surgery, the vitamins and minerals need to be easily dissolvable. They need to be very, what we call bioavailable to you, break down easily. So for a while, like a hard pill, multivitamin won't break down very easily in that stomach. We need to baby it. So I'll send you some recommendations. You can do some research and listen for like some feedback from people, what people like and don't like. And then we'll talk about that in another session. And eventually I'm going to have you order those before your surgery. Okay. Any thoughts or questions? I mean, we will go over this later.
I think there's a vitamin right now, just like one of those like multivitamin. It has everything in it.
Good. So you're in the habit of taking something, which is good.
Yes.
Excellent.
Just like because like I feel like I feel less tired when maybe like even just mentally I feel less tired when I know that I'm taking something. So I've been doing that.
Well, That's the power of nutrients. It can give you more energy. That's definitely
Right.
what you and I are going to be talking about. And believe it or not, we can get more energy from food. So, all right. The other thing that I often talk with patients about is, for a while after your surgery, again, we have to pamper that stomach. So there's going to be a series of textures as you recover that you're going to progress through. For a while, having liquid protein is going to be very important. So have you ever had any high protein drinks in the past?
Like the like those powder protein powders.
Powdered or bottled stuff? Have you ever had that?
I used to do the powder stuff, Beth, but then I read things in different places, and then they said they may not be so great for your body, and then I stopped doing it.
Okay. All right. So I ask all my patients to get a few pre-bottled protein drinks, because you need something that's super quick and easy, because you're going to be tired for a few days, and then your fatigue will get less and less as the days go on and you heal. But I don't want you to always have to mix powders with things. So I ask you to get a few pre-bottled. I have some brand recommendations. We can go over this. I
I
typically
used to do one of those in the very, like 10 years ago or so, like the one with the other one. Yeah. No, the other.
This one,
Yeah.
Premier.
Yeah, I used to have those. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then right now, because we're running a little short on time, I'm not going to go too far into them, but we can talk more. I can go over different options there, but I want you to maybe start to try a couple again to see what flavors you like, okay, or don't like, because I will eventually have you purchase those before surgery. Also going to have you purchase a protein water. I'll go into that a little bit more, but I just wanted you to know so you can start to try different things.
The water, right?
It cut out. I didn't hear you.
Do you hear me?
No, it cut out for a second. I'm sorry. Technical difficulties.
Is it better now?
It is better. Yes.
So sometimes when I switch the microphone, it does go back to normal. So what I was asking is, like, do you want me to wait to start for the protein drinks until the surgery, or do you want to start right away?
That's a good question. So I would suggest that you just look for some and try some flavors that you like. From what you told me, you tend to have meals throughout the day. So for some of my patients, they actually skip meals and don't eat for hours at a time. And so then I say, well, could you at least have a protein shake? So, but because you're eating throughout the day, I don't think it's as necessary that you start in on them every day, but I would like you to try some, maybe have it as a snack sometime instead of the ice cream, for example.
Okay.
And then you could start to decide what flavors you like, et cetera, and then just kind of set some aside for after surgery. Okay. So those are a couple things that eventually you'll purchase to have on hand, your vitamins and minerals and your protein drinks. Okay. All right.
One of the other things that work for me,
Yeah.
we are marketing here. So when I really want to have ice cream, I would probably I would try to kind of curb that with like yogurt and mix with like berries and ice, and try to kind of just not to go through the ice cream stage. So it's like the way that you are explaining this protein is almost like maybe I can do that. But do you think that also is okay to do, like the yogurt, like the plain yogurt mixing with berries?
Yeah, especially if you were willing, if you like plain, that's kind of that's the fanciest and the most healthy of all kinds of yogurts, is usually the plain, because it's got a good amount of protein in it and it doesn't have added sugars. And then adding a small amount of fruit to it does add the natural sweetness, plus it adds fiber. The other thing I like to do is maybe add a little crunch to it. So instead of using like sugary granolas, I just throw a handful of like crushed walnuts or slivered almonds in there or something to give it a little protein and a little fiber. So yeah, that would be absolutely wonderful if you could start to do that more often. Yeah, absolutely. And that's even something you could have after surgery too, eventually. All right. So the last thing that we would do in our final session is we tend to not have a ton of time at the end because it takes a lot of time to get all this details in the initial session. But usually I end with doing a little bit of initial goal setting. And so I'm going to pause and we'll do a short role play with that. But I want to tell you what comes after we set some goals. The last thing we do is I just explain to him, all right, since we have 3 sessions, our middle session, we're going to jump a lot more into goal setting and maybe some teaching and question answering. So if you have any, I tell people, if you have any questions that you've thought of over the month, you can ask me any nutrition question you ever had during that session. So the middle session is kind of a lot of the learning goes on there, and then we set more goals in that session. And then our final nutrition session, I let them know that that's really dedicated to understanding how you recover healthily from surgery. So we kind of go through all the stages of eating after surgery, how long you're drinking your meals, then how long you're kind of eating more of a pureed consistency, how long you're then eating a softer food consistency. So that's our 3rd session typically. We fit a lot in the middle session.
What I did is I signed up with the Facebook support group that CHRIAS has. So that was also kind of I'm getting a lot of good information from there as well.
Excellent. And I'm glad you mentioned that one, because you're right. The people going through often have very similar questions for and can help answer each other's questions that way. Other things that we will definitely tend to talk about in a middle session, we go into meal planning and meal prepping, because that is a foundation of healthy eating, not leaving things up to the last minute all the time. So all dietitians kind of tend to give a lot of help and ideas on how to do that regularly. We tend to talk about tracking tools. I always tell patients, and this is very true, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with like putting everything you eat and drink into one of these phones, because hey, most of us are very busy, and it's another thing that we have to do all the time. It takes time and effort.
My activities, Dr. Erkan told me he told me on the first visit, you have to measure your daily activity. Yep. That's how I started.
But whether it's inconvenient to use all the time or not, we do know that putting what you eat and drink into these kinds of things is very informative. Plus, it keeps us more aware of what our choices add up to over a period of time. So during our middle session, or at the end of the first session, if I have time, we are going to talk about how to use the app. I might tutor you on how to use it a little bit. I'm going to show you where there are instructional videos online that you can watch to get to know how to use them. So that's just another thing that we do. We also talk about kind of some of the changes based on the food recall that I did. We're going to talk about if a patient skips meals a lot, which a lot of people going and getting bariatric surgery do that. And we talk about how that tends to not support energy level being higher throughout the day. You tend to have kind of highs and lows depending on, we want to avoid that. Plus, when your stomach's so small after surgery, you can't kind of make up for something later in the day. So you have to kind of spread your meals throughout the day. So we will talk about the importance of kind of fitting in protein numerous times, like usually 3 to 5 times a day. And then we talk about kind of the appropriate supporting foods, like how do you get enough dietary fiber in, because constipation can, come into play. How do you make sure that you're trying to avoid that? Anyway, so I think I kind of summed up. Sorry, I didn't role play anymore with you. And I know you have a time constraint, so you tell me.
One of the ideas, so although this is a live event right now, for the reason we wanted to do this is because we want this session to be available when we feel like patient may need more support. So we can actually send this link, then they can watch this video even sometime before they come to you guys.
Yeah.
And then for the after the live, we are going to actually probably just customize it a little bit edited so that it can guide the patients why we are doing it and what's really happened in this. But I think like some of it's what I remember. So because I think you have given me some stuff already,
Okay.
like exchanging like some of the unhealthy maybe choices with a healthier option instead of just cutting it off. Just like, from ice cream to like a protein shake, you may get this similar satisfaction with less damage. So I hear that, and I also hear like the timing of what to eat and when to eat, kind of, and increasing my activities and like we didn't talk about the late night eating, but maybe what we can do is like we'll maybe, because this was an idea, if this works out, which I think it is, we can do like a second session of this so that we can still plan on what we discussed. We can carry it to a second visit.
Absolutely.
And cover more stuff in it. But we make these choices throughout the day. But I think our patients need the most support. That's why there is a big team who's like you guys are part of that
many
team.
Angles, yes.
Yeah, our surgeons, our primary care, our bariatricians, psych. Am I missing anyone? Cardiology, pulmonary, of course. So it's an extremely sophisticated support that we are trying to provide. But if we can actually make certain things a little bit more efficient, because sometimes patients don't get like, even now, like we were thinking that we could do this in 35 minutes and
Right.
and 50 minutes. And I feel as if I was a patient, I feel like I don't want to be cut off now. Like,
right.
Like, can we just talk a little bit more, kind of? So this would probably hopefully give them this additional
Questions are necessary. Yeah. Well, you make a really good point. That's why the dietitians tend to say a little bit more, because you're right. I didn't get to address the nighttime eating. We hadn't specifically set any goals. Now we would have if we weren't doing the back and forth between you and I would have been able to fit that in with you, but getting more into just idea generating and, oh, have you ever tried this meal? You might like this. And here's how you add more fiber into your diet. Sometimes we even have to go into, some of the more basics, like what a carbohydrate is and what role does it have in your body. And so, correct, the initial session, a good bulk of it is taken up with just me getting a lot of information from you, and then a little bit of teaching at the end. The middle sessions where we try to get in a lot, but we only have 30 minutes there, so we're so if we can sometimes add more sessions because there's so much to talk about, we will. And then we have that third session where we wrap everything up and talk about recovery. But not all patients need many sessions. I had a patient today that came in and she's like, I've been meal planning and I just bought an exercise bike and my sister had bariatric surgery, so I know what to do, and I've tried protein shakes. And I'm like, great. So yeah, some people, the 3 sessions, we don't have to put in as much because they're very knowledgeable about things. So that's why the dietitian really listens to where are you, my patient.
Yeah, this is, just the exercise itself, like just this exercise is helpful. So because sometimes, like when we are trying to do so many different things for the patient, we forget how important each element is. And I think nutrition is one of the key. And knowing that patients actually can follow through with you guys, even after the surgery, if they feel like they need more support. So this is a good way to guide them and support them. And I think we did good, right? Yeah,
I think so. Hopefully, you're the boss.
No. Well, I was actually just writing to Donna. I'm like, it's going very well.
Okay, well, good. Yay, phew. Yeah, I mean, I'm very biased. I love what I do, but I think the really neat thing about meeting with a dietitian, well, one, our sessions are longer than most of the other sessions, right? With your surgeon, you're meeting for about 15 minutes with your follow-ups and things. With a dietitian, we get to talk about the things that have influenced our eating patterns. Well, and there's a lot of things that influence eating patterns. And the dietitian starts to really get into that, because if you don't solve the core issues, or you don't work on and identify the core issues, it gets really hard to change patterns. So yeah, the dietitian does a lot more than just saying, here's what to eat.
The other thing that I want to tell the patients, reading and watching videos related to this is important, but make sure these are coming from the expertise of the healthcare provider. So I do this session mainly with Dr. Erkan, and I don't give clinical advice, but sometimes when you look at media, someone did X, someone did Y, and is this the right thing for me? Or you hear something and it's really not what they mean on the headline. So when you start reading it, it's something different. So
that's the reason why United Medical, you hired registered dietitians. There is a difference between a registered dietitian and just a nutritionist.
Yeah.
Right. A registered dietitian is a licensed medical professional that has not only, the degree, but we have a license that we are required to keep up. And we have, years of study that is behind our credential. A nutritionist might know a lot about nutrition, but they do not have any of those professional requirements. So you definitely kind of want to know where your information is coming from.
Absolutely. So don't believe everything you see or you hear. So make sure you go to the source, and that's why we do these sessions. And I was a little bit worried about it in the beginning, but I think it's all more now. So we did really well. Hopefully, patients can find this helpful, and our goal is to support them. So. And I definitely believe that we should do a follow-up to this, and I promise I'll schedule that ahead of time this time. So, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next week with Dr. Erkan.
Great.
So have a great weekend.